Good morning, everybody. Happy to see y'all. Tex Homer here with Ian Boyd. We are, of course, going to go into some schematic elements, try to really understand the mechanics of the teams we're going to face. And this week, we got the Florida Gators on the slate. So first, we're going to talk about their offense. Oh, that's the old one. We're going to talk about the Florida offense, run game specifically, and then the big humans element of that. Then we're going to talk about the Florida defense. They're also going to be a key factor in this style that they're going to have to implement versus Texas. And then we're going to talk the new CFP rankings and their practical applications. So there's the rankings and then there's the actual seedings. We're going to look at the actual seedings because that's how it's going to actually be reflected in reality. So that's going to be a big difference there. All right. You ready to rock, Ian?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. Roaster, good morning, man. Good to see you.
What time did you go to sleep last night, Homer?
I went to bed probably around 12:30-ish.
I fell asleep on the couch kind of early, like 11:10 or something.
Yeah, I normally am in bed by turning off the TV probably at 11:30, but
I've been going to bed way earlier these days. I got to wake up with the kids every morning.
Well, it's weird. The time change should actually make it feel like it's 12:30, but I've actually ended up staying up later since the time change. It's kind of weird. I don't know what's going on there because it should be the opposite. I should be going to bed earlier, but for whatever reason, I'm not. All right, let's talk Florida run game. So first, if anyone wasn't aware, Florida's on their third-string quarterback. If you listen to Napier, Lagway might even be back. Not happening. So third-string Aiden Warner's there, and he's going to be limited. So really the strategy for Gators to win this is going to be an effective run game that can chew clock, tire us out, and then on the flip side, their defense has to be able to perform and kind of frustrate Quinn. So that's the model for how they could win this. But first, let's pull up Ian's article on the Florida run game.
Maybe while you're doing that, worth noting that on Lagway, like the reason you would play him is just because his arm can stretch the ball down the field better than Aiden Warner's can. But he's going to have to elude pass rushers. And there's just no way they're going to ask if Billy Napier's job is safe, which it seems like it is. There's no way you ask your phenom freshman to go out there and play on a bad hammy and try to dodge Colin Simmons. You're just begging for disaster and like a much worse injury.
Yeah, I mean, hamstrings are notorious for how easily you can aggravate them. It's crazy. I have in my right top of my hamstring, I have a little twinge from when I run. And I've been dealing with that for like 6 months, it seems now. And then I'll rest it, and I'm like, we're good to go. And then I'll go back out and run again, same thing. So it's like that's a really tricky injury to deal with. Soft tissues are weird.
I think that's actually what happened to so you can correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe somebody in the comments can if they're not all sleeping off election night. I think that's what happened to Kawhi Leonard, is he had this like chronic hamstring deal. And I think the Spurs even told him like, this is like degenerative. You're going to be fighting this forever. And he was like, no way, I'm not trying to hear that. and that's like part of what led to their big breakup. But it was right, obviously, because he's never been able to stay healthy ever since then.
Yeah, he's had to. And load management is pretty much all you can do for a hamstring. Like you can just kind of wait a week, come back, tweak it again, wait another week, come back, tweak it again.
There were all those rumors flying about Oklahoma's Nick Anderson. Mm-hmm. And I think like, he's holding out for NIL or whatever, and that's why he's not playing. I think it was just this. He had a bad hammy. He did try to play against Texas, I think, or the week before Texas. He ran one route. It was Tennessee, right? He ran one route against Tennessee and then was like, and it just like worse.
Yeah, it's a brutal injury, man, because there's no way you're not going to tweak it again.
Jordan Shipley, hamstring issues for years until he finally did some like super long-term aggressive rehab to get over that issue.
Yeah, and it was just funny, Napier even trying to suggest that he would come back. Fellas, put yourself in Sark's shoes. What would your opening script be on offense? Throw at the corners?
Yeah. I think you're going to want to test those corners a little bit. And if you land something, then you just immediately wrong foot the Gators with whatever. If you're able to pick on their corners early and they're not covering it up, then they're going to have to immediately make adjustments with their coverages and how they're playing you. And then the rest of the game's really easy.
Are they majority? I know you said that they play a lot of quarters. Is quarters their majority coverage?
Yeah, Meg quarters is their preference.
They play man everywhere he goes with the corners?
Yeah.
Okay,
so
safety post by the number 2, and then dig by the number 1.
Yeah.
That's my opening script.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some version of dig post.
Yeah.
Or double post.
Yeah.
Quinn.
Yeah, if the corners are truly, and they're on, because Dijon Johnson went down, that was their 3rd string. I don't know if he'll be back. Moore was on crutches, like you said, and then is it Marshall, the one that went down for the season, landed on his shoulder, weird in Kentucky or Tennessee.
Presumably they would tell their safety to bracket the deepest route, and then just leave their leave their backers on the dig, and then you find out if Quinn's ready to step up and hit those or not, which I think you will.
Yeah. Sark loves his Yankee concept. Everyone does, even in the NFL. I mean, it's so prominent. It's the most beautiful and efficient route combination there is for what you get out of it. All right, so on their offensive side, we don't think they're going to be able to pass successfully. Also, they lose Eugene Trey Wilson, which sucks. Especially for me, because I had to write a couple minutes on him in my breakdown. So really devastating for me. Have to waste that. But he went down, which is also important because he's their yak guy. So lowest average depth of target in the SEC, highest yards after catch per reception in the SEC. So that's a quarterback's best friend because he could just throw the little screen out to him and then he can get you. He's averaging 11 yards. He's averaging over a first down every time he gets the ball, and he's doing it on his own.
That's kind of a disaster for them because that needed to be their change up to the run game was ball control passing with Aiden Warner throwing to that guy or other short range targets.
Yeah. So it's like that. That's why it's brutal. So I guess like as a young quarterback now, you just kind of rely on the big body tight ends closer to the line. But man, to just be able to throw that screen and he picks up a first down, that would have been huge for them. So they're not able to do that in the passing game, right? They're going to need to fall on the running game and do some ball control stuff. And Ian's first portion of their run game is Billy Napier's big human. So can you please expand on your thesis here?
When Billy Napier took over at Florida, the first thing he did was exactly the same thing as what Steve Sarkisian and Kyle Flood did at Texas, which is go find the biggest people you can recruit in time and get them on your campus and transform your offensive line into we need that Kyle Flood Vitruvian man meme.
Yeah.
Where it's like the ideal man, but Kyle Flood's ideal man looks like a world's strongest man, like just a huge guy with, not a six pack, but just mass everywhere. Yeah. Some of these guys, the smaller guys you see, like Jalen Farmer and David Connor, are already off the roster. And I think those were holdovers they were either very late additions or they were holdovers from the previous staff's recruiting class. And then he got those two huge guys, Cameron Waits and Osiris Torrance, who's now in the NFL, and Jordan Herman, who also flushed out of the roster, but they tried to add him in too. So these are just gigantic people. And if you look at their offensive line right now, Waits rotates in. They have Damian George from North Shore, who people remember, who's enormous. Their center is big for a center.
Yeah, Slaughter.
It's Jake Slaughter. Their left guard, he's like Jake Slaughter's thinking like Cole Hudson probably. Their left guard is not tall, but he's 325, 330 pounds. They are big. That's their deal. We're going to be big We're going to cover up your guys so that you can't get penetration into the backfield. And we're just going to like screen you away from the ball.
Yeah. And not even purely on offense, right? Cam Jackson on the defensive line. Desmond Watson's the absurd one. He's the nose, 6'5", 449 pounds. Crazy size. Like too much size. And let's see.
It works decently. He had a guy like that at Louisiana too. Do you remember doing previews when Texas played them with Hudson Card?
Yeah.
Like one of the notes was like, hey, they're playing like a lot of underfront, and then the nose they're putting at the point of attack was like a 350-pound dude that like maybe got in trouble somewhere and transferred in. I can't remember his name. But that's he loves that. He's just making it real simple. In the trenches, we're just going to be really big.
Yeah. Like Texas, they rotate between 11 personnel and 12 personnel. Yep. Pro style team. And the guy who stays on the field for them in either package is tight end Hayden Hansen. Also a really good receiving tight end. So he's like second or first in yards per reception and second or first in yards after catch per reception.
Is he really?
Player. Yeah.
He's only caught 9 balls.
Yeah.
I guess they've all been very damaging.
Yeah. That's basically what it is, right? They block with them, send them out, and then they get you. So like once or twice a game, he's going to make you pay.
He's like Texas's ideal future for Spencer Shannon is Hayden Hansen. I don't know if that'll happen or not. He's just another big guy at the point of attack blocking. So he makes it really easy to block all their run game. Like the big thing with Hayden Hansen, and obviously he has hands too, so if you don't cover him, he'll catch it. The big thing with Hayden Hansen for this game against Texas is that a lot of 11 personnel teams that have a running quarterback, when you have a running quarterback, you don't have to block somebody up front. So like you can leave a defensive end unblocked and have the quarterback read him on the option, right? On like 60% of your run plays or more. And the quarterback's not even going to get that many carries because they'll just make that guy stay home and then you can still hand off, right?
Yeah.
So then you end up with a receiving tight end because it's like, hey, we don't have to block these guys that much. So our tight end can be a 230-pound dude who's like a big slot, right?
Arliss Boardingham.
Florida does have those guys, or like a Juan Davis or a Jatavian Sanders type guy. But Florida does not do that. They still have the huge blocking tight end. So when you take away the quarterback run, and it's like, well, now we have to block somebody with our tight end. Now our tight end is going to have to block a defensive end. That's no problem. That's already built in. So they're totally okay in that respect. Again, I don't think losing Lagway in the run game, it sucks for them, but it does not cripple their run game concept in any way.
Yeah. So this is the current group: Austin Barber, 4th year, Najee Harris, 2nd, Slaughter, 4th. It's I just did it for my breakdown, but I can't remember. It's Najee or something like that.
Okay.
Harris, Damian George, and then right tackle Brandon Crenshaw Dixon. So 6'6", 6'3", 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", and then Hayden Hansen 6'6" at tight end.
The tackles they're tall, which is good, obviously. The tackles are not like Cameron Williams where they're just like insane. They look like normal tackles.
Yeah. But
the interior is really big. That's where they are more plus sized.
Yeah. So this is what's interesting. I think you cancel out some conventional wisdom of why you want big bodies purely for, like inside zone or vertical push concepts. You say that there's more value in size opposed to just blowing people off the ball.
Yeah, the myth is people tend to think like, oh, you have a really big offensive line. Now you can really push people off the ball. Tall, heavy dudes on the offensive line are often actually not that good at pushing defensive linemen backwards. because it's a low man wins game, right? And it's just really hard for them to get low and get leverage to push people. But what they are really good at is enveloping people. They get their hands on somebody and he can't really do anything. Even if he holds his ground decently, he's like flailing his arm, trying to make an arm tackle or something. He's not getting push because it's equally hard to push the 350-pound dude backwards. And a lot of time, the really good ones are good at like turning a shoulder or screening a guy. Plus, late in the game, after you've been like pushing and fighting with these like massive people throughout the game, at the end of the game, when those double teams come, then you do start to get movement and people get washed out because it's exhausting. But yeah, the guy that gets like the best movement for them is probably Najee Harris, who's the shortest guy and like the smallest guy. But
you've even seen like noses and some tackles on the defensive line get shorter. And I think like an example is like from us would be Byron Murphy. Like if you're a super tall 6'7" player, I mean, he's going to out leverage you every time. He's going to be basically under your chest, and there's nothing you're going to be able to do. And so that's kind of the interesting size too, is like we have this concept of like being really tall, being super advantageous, when normally what we're talking about with someone being tall is actually their length. The length of their arms is the huge beneficial part. It's not purely their height that makes them good.
yes.
So I think that
the ideal lineman would be like short, but have the big wingspan, like a Dwayne Wade, like 6'4", but 6'11" wingspan.
They would look very weird, but that would be the ideal thing. 6'7" cool, but most of the time we're saying it's because he has good reach because he's 6'7".
Yeah.
Right, before we keep going real quick, let's hear a word from our sponsor.
I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor, and I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach, and he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
Check them out, y'all. All right, so let's talk about some of their concepts here that they like to run. Let me zoom this in as much as I can. It'll kick it into mobile mode. Okay. So this is inside zone.
This is the split zone where they motion the tight end.
Okay.
You see teams do this all the time. A&M was trying to do this with a lineman that they stole from Penn State. Like you put an extra offensive lineman on the field and you motion him like the tight end on split zone. But when you do that, it's pretty obvious. Go ahead.
All right, let's rock.
Yeah, what you see here is they're initially just holding the point of attack. And then when the running back makes his cut and the defenders try to pursue, then the big guys start leaning on him. That's basically what a standard positive Florida run looks like. And they're doing it against Georgia here, which, as you recall, it looked very different when Texas was trying to get push or trying to win the point of attack on these plays against Georgia. They were getting stacked and stuffed.
Yeah, why is that? You think Florida's just a better run blocking unit than we are? Or you think Georgia just wasn't as inspired?
You hope not. I don't know. I mean, that's the Occam's razor, right?
Yeah.
There was one guy in particular for Texas that was getting whipped a lot, though. So it's hard to know what that, like, maybe one guy just wasn't dialed in or injured or something.
Yeah. I remember that same guy when we were playing OU on the OU side, they were saying that guy also was who they would attack, and teams seemed to have keyed in on that.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the split zone stuff where the tight end comes and blocks the backside end on zone.
You did a good job, too.
Yeah, he did.
Like usually, like when Gunnar Helm executes that block, you're just like, just screen the guy and don't let him get any push.
Yeah. And
Like,
he'll stop his feet and like he'll run. He basically runs up to him and then stops, and that's how you get beat every time blocking.
yeah, on outside zone it works a lot better than inside zone because you're just holding for the line creates the backside crease. On inside zone, you kind of want to knock that guy back, and Hayden Hansen got some knockback there.
Yeah, lots of motion from the tight ends. Let's watch this.
This one's outside zone, where they motion the tight ends both to the edge, and then they just clear out whoever that was trying to set the edge, just gets taken out.
An outside zone's the most common run concept that Texas runs as well.
Yeah, they're really similar, Texas and Florida. It's almost the same run game in some respects. Florida is probably a little more inside zone heavy this year than Texas. Probably attribute that to Texas having, Jake Majors and Kelvin Banks and Hayden Connor, who are better at outside zone than inside zone.
Yeah, good lateral movers.
Yeah,
and then they add the punch with counter. So yeah, it's a similar style. But 2 leads there, and then that's Michael. Yeah, he gets a good block on Michael Williams. I mean, he sets him back enough.
Is that who's on the edge?
Yeah, that's 13.
Yeah, we're gonna see more of that in a minute. There's a counter run that I also gift in this article, and Hayden Connor has to block. This one. Yeah. It's that one. Right, yeah. Hayden Connor has to block Michael Williams at the point of attack on counter to set the edge so that the pulling blockers can get around him. And it barely works.
Yeah. They've gotten better with counter too as the kind of season would go on. I would expect a lot of bear fronts. Just to try to frustrate the zone scheme.
Yeah, I think they'll do that when Florida plays with 2 tight ends, which I guess they kind of. If I were Florida, I'd be tempted to play more 11 personnel because I don't know if I want to.
Yeah, but with the lack of quarterback and Eugene Wilson out,
Yeah,
I mean, it's almost like you just kind of have to sell out because you can. I mean, I get why you're saying why you would do 11, but you don't have the quarterback to make the other half of 11 even make sense in the pass game. I would just go basically a ton of tight ends, try to run it down. You're probably going to lose either way, and then the big plays. Hopefully, you can leak out Hayden Hansen for a, something run into the sidelines, and hopefully he turns it upfield.
The one complication for Texas in this game is that their best defensive tackle, Vernon Broughton, misses the first half because of the targeting penalty.
Mm-hmm.
So their number of SEC caliber defensive tackles that they can play in this game, like Bill Norton can play in this game for sure. Alfred Collins, Jermaine Lole, and then what? Like, is Tia Savea up for this? Can they play one of the younger guys like Dre Bledsoe or Michael January? Can they get a couple decent snaps out of those guys? Who am I missing?
Sadir?
Oh, yeah, Sadir. So maybe a Sadir game because Sark did talk him up.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is good, man. I'm glad that he's been able to get back into good graces because we thought he was out of here. So I'm glad that he's back in the mix because we need that type of big body, especially next year, man, when we're losing a bunch. But yeah, I think the first half's not going to be ideal there. It's just the first half is just slow him down, man.
Yep. They're going to, so definitely you're going to want to, I think you're right. You just go big and try to ball control if you're Florida, like Mississippi State.
Mm-hmm.
Shorten that first half up real good and see if you can lean on him. Blake's asking about Alex January. When's the last time we saw him?
Dude, I have no idea.
I think that
I can try to pull up his snap counts real quick. Let me see.
They have young guys, Blake. They have a bunch of young guys that they're going to have to play next year, but they brought in so many older dudes in the portal that there's no way those young guys got a ton of first team, second team reps in fall camp.
Yeah, so he played 17 snaps versus Oklahoma. He didn't play week. He didn't play versus Georgia, and then he played 2 snaps versus Vandy.
My guess is that in the spring, they'll probably portal in another defensive tackle or two. But I think in the spring they will send January and Mitchell and Bledsoe to boot camp and just zero in like, okay, you guys have to be good now. And we've seen that at Texas, like when it's a defensive tackle's turn to have a chance to make money and to be the featured guy, they get developed very differently.
Yeah.
DeAndre Sweat made an enormous leap his senior year.
But these guys are also still young comparatively to whenever we normally see that leap, you know?
That is a potential hang up. Vernon Broughton made an enormous leap. Need at least one guy to do that.
Collins has improved. Vernon has improved, but those are all like 4th, 5th year players. That's kind of the tricky part. Can they do it with a 3rd year guy?
Yeah, when you can dangle the NFL contract in front of them,
right,
in the off season, it's easier.
Yeah, but also it's like we have this weird incentive structure where it's like you don't really have to try to your last year because all you've seen that you can just show up at Texas, not do anything until your last year and get your millions. I wish we would have a structure that was like, you need to start being good year 3 and then year 4. I guess Byron Murphy is a good example of doing the dang thing from day 1. But it is funny how we're like, just hang around until year 5 and then we'll get you in the league.
It may just be a reality of the types of guys that play defensive tackle at the University of Texas and the nature of being a semi-pro athlete in the city of Austin is a big guy.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of luxury and distractions and
food trucks,
yeah. Terrific food, some spending money now to spend on that food. It's tough. It's like, and those guys like Broughton and Sweat, they were decent. They were like, they legitimately got better every year, but before they made those enormous leaps. But it was like the last possible year, like, okay, if you want that NFL contract, it has to be this year.
Yeah.
And so that's the scare. We said like a Dre Bledsoe or a January could be like, I know you want this for me, but I don't have that same urgency.
And I want Dre Bledsoe in particular, man, he's a special athlete. If that light comes on for him, man, that's going to be awesome. But also I'm worried about just size, right? Alex January and Sadir Mitchell. It's just like for next year, I want some big bodies. Also,
just for the record, I don't know that Bledsoe and January are at all held back by lack of desire. We don't know that we're not trying to imply that that's the case. That's just there's
no intel here.
Yeah, that just seems to happen a lot with big defensive tackles. It's just like a stereotype of what often happens with big defensive tackles.
And you can prove it data wise. It's what defensive tackle is one of the highest bust rates too, right? As opposed to like recruiting stars to NFL output. So yeah, it's you gamble a lot with those big guys, man. Some of them are big. Here's the difference. This is what you got to figure out. So to gain that much weight for some people, it requires so much discipline. They're having to eat an absurd amount at these exact time, 4 or 5 times a day, like a bodybuilder, right? That's actually very disciplined. But on the flip side, you have the guy that's not disciplined at all, and he just naturally eats horrible food all the time. You have to figure out which one they are. And that's where the bust rate can be a little different. Are they just guys that are excessive anyways? Or are these more of a bodybuilder mentality where they're trying actively to gain weight? Or are they just naturally very overweight guys lacking that discipline? And that's why I think there's high bust rates in that position because it can go kind of either way there.
Yeah, it happens where there are a lot of guys that are naturally powerful and explosive and also naturally 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And you ask any high school coach for basketball or football, there will always be enormous guys that they had to like beg or convince to play their sport.
Yeah.
And they're really just playing it because they can, and they've been like pushed and incentivized to, and they may or may not like love it.
It's like being 7 foot. Like what is there's some crazy stat that like, what is it, like 5% or 13% of people over a certain height play like college and NBA basketball. And there's no way that many are interested. It's just you're 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
You know?
You can kind of tell too which ones are with.
you can sort it out. But yeah, that's the DT is high bust rate, and it makes sense with the body types why it could be high bust rate. Plus, man, just having to be 350 and still put out the athletic output of like a safety is crazy, man. All right, you ready to look at the Florida defense?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. But before I tricked you guys, before we do that, let's hear a word from our sponsor.
This video is brought to you by Luxe Kitchen and Bath. Luxe has been offering high-end kitchen and bathroom remodels for 3 generations throughout the greater Austin area. With 5-star review after 5-star review on Google and Facebook, and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, you can put your faith in Luxe Kitchen and Bath's award-winning designers and skilled craftspeople to bring to life that dream vision of your special home. But that's not all. Luxe's all-star team provides full remodels, large additions, and even commercial build-outs as well. So call Luxe Kitchen and Bath at 833-358-LUXE today. Or visit luxekitchenbath.com to discover where quality meets luxury and begin the process of transforming your home. Get a free quote today by calling 833-358-LUXE. That's L-U-X-E. Or by visiting luxekitchenbath.com. Link in the description.
Link in the description. All right. Scouting the Florida Gator defense. All right. Let's see where to start. Okay. So your main point you start with is Carson Beck got picked off 3 times, and they held Georgia for 4 for 11. I never looked at that. 36% on third downs. And some of those interceptions were directly schematic. I can't remember all of them, but the one where they sim and then drop back to the middle of the field, and I think Aaron Gates or whatever gets that pick. That was a schematic interception.
There's maybe no. I think that one. I think that one is gift in here. I don't know if that's what happened in that one.
The Aaron Gates one?
Yeah, he's the nickel, right?
Yeah, Aaron Gates is the nickel. Is
That's
this him?
Yeah, that's it.
Let me see. Is this the one where he pressures and drops out? Oh no, you're right. I was thinking that was much more.
I don't know what Beck was doing on that one.
Yeah,
honestly.
I don't know what he's doing either. I assume that they had to have been applying pressure.
They were late. That I don't get that one. But
he's reading his eyes the whole way too. If you watch, I mean, it's literally he's just taking him to the football because he's spot dropping into zone, and he's just falling back. I thought there was much more of a coaching win than that was.
That's how Barron played much of last year when Texas was more of a quarters team. You would watch him sometimes, and he'd be way more shallow in zone than you would think, but he was playing angles. The other one is a schematic interception for sure, where the edge picks it off.
So give the first part, the profile of improvement, kind of what's been going on the past couple of years, and then surprisingly, what have they been able to do this year?
They added Ron Roberts, which I almost neglected in this article. Ron Roberts is like a older godfather figure in the like zone replacement blitz school. So like one of his big proteges was Dave Aranda. Dave Aranda came up with Roberts at some point. Ron Roberts.
He's the big creeper simulated guy.
Yeah, which I guess we can explain in a minute because that sounds weird.
He's a creeper.
Yeah, he's a creeper. So Ron Roberts worked with Billy Napier at Louisiana. And when Dave Aranda got the Baylor job, he brought Ron Roberts with him to come help him at Baylor. then he had to fire him and throw him under the bus when things went awry at Baylor. And Billy Napier ended up adding him this year to help Austin Armstrong, which is his young coordinator. Florida was really struggling with defense. Like, they were decent with Darth Mullen, but not great. And then, like, year one, they slipped with Napier. Year two, they like collapsed, and they were like making changes midseason. And you figured that they would get a lot better this year because it's hard to play defense that poorly at Florida if you try. Your athletes are too good to be that bad at defense. And early in the year, it looked like they were going to somehow achieve being terrible again.
Well, everyone kind of wrote Florida off after the first couple of games, and they've improved consistently since then.
They've improved, yes, considerably. They are I heard maybe that the players had begged Armstrong to be a little less exotic and just let them play a little more base defense.
It makes sense that they're playing a lot of quarters now, right?
Yeah, but they we'll get to that in a second. But they are playing well. The hang up is that they lost their best corner a couple weeks ago. They lost the other starting cornerback potentially. I haven't seen an official deal.
Yeah.
He left the game and he didn't come back against Georgia last week. They've got the turncoat 5-star that was at Colorado for a year and bailed on Dion, is now one of their starting corners.
Cormani
McClain. The other starting corner might be a guy that they had improved a lot by playing him at safety, Trikwezi Bridges.
Yeah. Trikwezi.
Okay.
Yeah. He's a former Oregon player. Yeah.
He's a good player, but I think having him at safety was a huge boost to them, and I think having him at corner is less great. So they are significantly improved, but that may not be reflected in this game because one of their big edges was just having really good corner play and a few veterans, and now they're going to be a lot younger and a lot less of a sure thing at cornerback, which is huge because of the way they play schematically.
Yeah. And it would have been more, it seems like it would have been more frustrating if Armstrong was still trying to throw the kitchen sink at everything and confuse super bad. But if you're playing like Meg, man, everywhere he goes on the corners, at least you've simplified there. It's just, can they athletically keep up? I think Cormani McClain can athletically keep up. So it's just trying to kind of figure it out.
He may have some mistakes though, because he's going to be going up against Isaiah Bond now, coming off of a week of rest, and that could be tricky.
Yeah.
So the nature of their scheme is perfect for creepers and sim blitzes because they play Meg quarters, the term we keep saying.
And Meg just means you're just talking about the technique of the corner. So if you hear Meg, it just means man everywhere he goes. You'll also hear mod corners, MOD. That could be man only deep. I've heard it man only deep, man on demand, blah, blah, blah. It basically means that corner would take anything deep, but if he runs like a shallow drag, he'll let that go to the linebackers. So when we say Meg, mod, whatever you hear about corners, it's just the technique of the corners. So they're playing Meg, meaning that man everywhere he goes, even if they run shallows or drags.
They do some of both, but they usually have at least one guy in press man coverage at corner. And sometimes both. But inside, they play the opposite, which is they zone everything off with their linebackers, including the nickel. And
an example of it.
I think both of them are replacement blitzes. Okay, so this is the one we just watched for Grant. But watch the edge on this one.
Pyburn right here.
Yeah, Pyburn.
Number 44, white guy.
So the corner and top is in press man. Yeah. So Pyburn drops into zone underneath. Mm-hmm. And then the weak inside linebacker blitzes. And then they do the same thing on the next example, only it's the Mike inside linebacker.
And Georgia did this first play of the game versus us. where
Yeah.
Quinn almost throws that pick to the boundary and he's able to get it right over. Same concept Georgia did.
So they're playing their coverage techniques at linebacker are pretty simple zone drops, pattern matching, or pattern reading, I would say. And the safeties are both deep over the top. The corners are just on their own little islands.
Does he stay in if the back stays in? Is it the back that releases here, or is it the tight end? Let me see. Oh, it's the tight end that releases here. Never mind. I didn't know if it was conditional on if the back goes to the flats or not, but he's
No, it's not. It's like it's zone.
Yeah, it's pure zone drop.
It's pure zone drop. The same thing on the next clip. Maybe not. This is not what I thought.
Who are we looking at? What is this? Let's see.
I don't remember which one this is. Apparently, they're going to play quarters on it. Oh,
it's this like where you're talking where the safety can come down in the alley.
yeah, the safety can run the alley because the corners are in man.
Yeah.
So that press man coverage, the safety can help that corner on anything inside. But if he sees run, he can just run the alley.
We're gonna score on these guys then, because all you're gonna do is fake counter to the field like this, bring the safety down, and then you got one-on-one matchups with a third or fourth string corner on like Isaiah Bond. Let's see how bad the corner bites on the run fake. Does he go all the way up at that point? Let's see.
You mean the safety?
Yeah, the safety. Sorry. He waits a little bit, so he's not like crazy firing down the alley. Otherwise, you got one-on-ones all day.
Ron Roberts' trick that he did at Baylor and that he's doing at Florida is that because the quarterback looks the other direction and the back is the other direction, the safety plays it aggressively. If he was looking at the safety when he was handing off, the safety would stay back in case it was a RPO or play action.
Yeah.
Then you see the nickel would potentially be a part of the run fit. But because he sees the quarterback look to the field, the nickel puts his eyes there too, and he doesn't play the run as aggressively. And he knows the other side is where the run support's going to come from.
Yeah, he's looking at the RPO bubble screen.
So that you probably have to play action them to really punish that.
Get him to bite. Let's explain a creeper and a sim pressure. So the difference is a creeper doesn't show pressure pre-snap. So if you look at Fire 3 creeper, you see this will right here that's dropping. He's just standing where he normally is, and they're going to send pressure from the backside from this nickel. The difference with a simulated pressure is the will is mugged up and the mic is mugged up. They drop out and they still send the nickel here. So you're expecting like something up front to catch your eyes on the play side or whatever it is. You're looking at that, but really the pressure is going to end up coming from the opposite direction. But the difference between a creeper is they're just not showing you pre-snap. Simulated pressure, the value of a simulated pressure here is that you're trying to check the offensive line into 5-0 protection or man protection and limit their amount of double teams. So you're going to get the protection check and then you're going to drop out. So you're going to get the advantages of toying with an offensive line, and you'll get the benefits as if you were blitzing to their protection scheme, as long as they're not using scam protection. And then you'll drop out and get the benefits of zone. So you're going to get best of both worlds. We've kind of figured out in football that the idea of blitzing is more effective than the actual blitz sometimes. And you're seeing a ton of these simulated pressures. I mean, there hasn't been a week we haven't seen them. They've kind of just completely taken over.
Yeah, the idea is you want to do less with more. If you can manipulate the offensive line into running a predictable protection, then you can attack the weaknesses of that protection.
Well, and look here too, right? Say that, so what do you have on the line here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, you have 6 guys on the line, okay? You only have 5 offensive linemen. So we automatically know that they're going to have to do 5-on-5 there. And then the back is going to have to pick up one of the linebackers here because he's going to be coming in the A gap or B gap or either A gap. And that's the faster route to the quarterback. So you're going to have the offensive line trigger onto these guys, and you're going to have the back naturally step up at the snap. Well, when you do that, these guys are going to drop out, but the back is already going to be picked up there, and you're going to already have this end trying to deal with this F player, and you can fire the nickel theoretically off the edge on the backside, and you've canceled out the running back who would naturally be able to pick up that nickel for you.
So everybody, this is part of why you don't see freshmen have success at quarterback anymore.
Yeah,
or
I
even,
agree.
or even sophomores.
Yeah,
Because now,
split zone, split safeties and simulated pressures.
yeah,
Have like destroyed quarterbacks.
Yeah, it takes a long time to figure out how to see these things coming, how to work with your offensive line, how to anticipate. Like, even if you were theoretically good at moving in the pocket, you're a lot better at moving in the pocket if you know where to move, because you know where your protection is going to be and where it's being attacked. Just the understanding of all these things is very complicated and takes time.
Well, and Florida and all the other teams, there's some teams that are so simulated they almost never actually send this blitz. Florida does, though, because if you were smart as a quarterback and you through tape, you realize they just keep simming these things, but these guys are never firing. So if I'm feeling the heat in front of me, I really need to be aware of this backside pressure, this backside nickel, and so wherever I'm looking, I need to be aware of the opposite of where I'm looking is where the pressure is actually coming. But Florida will mug both Howard and Shamar, whatever, the Mike and Will. They'll mug both of them and then they'll send them. So it's not even like they have the real blitz that backs up the simulated pressure and actually makes it dangerous. So you don't know, are they actually sending them, or is it this fake pressure where they're going to drop out and send somebody from the other side? And keep in mind, Florida has the best pass rushing nickel grade in the SEC. And Vandy's nickel was wreaking havoc on us. So this is another test for the offensive line. This is another test for Quinn. We need to figure that out.
Ironically, Pyburn, their edge, is really good at dropping. He has a pick in one of these gifts I have, but he has like 0 sacks this season.
Yeah, he's built more like a run stopper too. Like you watch him in like counter, he's like shoving the lead puller into the lane. So he's doing pretty good on run, but he's all toughness based. It seems not a ton of finesse.
Roberts and Aranda both kind of like him like that. Like that one year when Aranda won the Big 12, his 2 top blitzers were their edge guy was like just like a big strong guy and good at dropping, and he didn't have many sacks. But their nickel was how did I forget his name? He was like a freaking.
The one that went to the Texans?
Yeah.
I'm blanking on him too.
He was awesome. And then one of their inside linebackers was, what?
Was it Petrie?
Yes, Jalen Petrie. He had like 7 or 8 sacks as a nickel or something. He was awesome. He would time it so well. He was physical. And then they had this like smaller, faster, weak side linebacker that also had a ton of sacks. This is what Todd Orlando was trying to do. And this is why Todd Orlando would do things like try to play Brecken Hager or Malcolm Roach at inside linebacker.
Yeah.
Obviously,
shout out Brecken Hager, man.
Obviously, it did not work. Should have just let them play their natural position and not try to be clever like Aranda and Roberts and just do things traditionally. But
yeah, when you guys hear us talk about sim pressure, simulated pressure, this is what we mean. I guess for the fans, you can kind of understand it as like a fake blitz, but it's not entirely fake because they will send a player you're not aware of on a blitz. So the pressure comes, but they stay sound, right? They're showing you potentially in this theory, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys could come. You could even watch the nickel. So potentially 7 guys can come right there, but really it only ends up ever being 4, meaning they have 7 to drop back in coverage. So they're not vacating any zones. So it seems aggressive. It feels aggressive. It's actually a very conservative strategy. They're not vacating any zones. They're making sure they're buttoned up. It's basically all reward, no risk, but it presents like it's this high stakes play style, and it's really not.
Yep.
Cool. But yeah, that's intro to simulated pressures. As a fan, you want to learn this, not like the actual schematics, but just the idea behind it, because everyone is doing it now, and it's totally messing with quarterbacks. All right, any other parts of the Florida defense you want to look at? Here's your zone replacement blitz, right?
I'm still saying the creeper sim.
Oh yeah, here, let me pull it up for you. Okay, this one.
Yes. So this is a really good example of how complicated this stuff gets. Which is that, can you run it and get it back to the beginning?
Yeah. Oof. Pyburn actually gets out to the.
He's a good dropper. He's a good dropper.
I thought he was just going to the flats. I didn't realize he'd go to the hook.
Okay. They mug one
Both the
linebacker.
Yeah.
They really mug one, but then they drop him and bring the other one, and they drop the edge.
Yeah.
So it looks like they could be bringing 5 or 4 that are different than the 4 they actually bring.
Yeah.
And see, he comes, and he waits to see where the line commits. And then he sees like the left guard and the left tackle are both engaged. So instead of running into the unengaged center,
he's going to loop around.
He like reverses direction back outside. Yeah. See, he's like, okay, do I go inside? Nope. He's about to like Euro step basically back across. And then, there's no one here to block me. Nails back through prayer.
And then Pyburn, who's in the middle of the field that gets that interception, he's coming off the edge here originally. Yeah. So you see why these quarterbacks are getting frustrated and confused. And I heard an interview with Sark yesterday that I thought was interesting. I can't remember what show he was on, but they were showing him plays and he was having to explain his offense. And he says that they're much more full progression now, because even Sark said, most of the time I can't tell these defenses. He's like, I don't know if they're in quarters. I don't know if they're in 2. And so it's like when the offensive coordinator is telling you he doesn't know what's going on from shells, and they're having to go to what he means by like progression offenses means there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reads. And hopefully like maybe 1 is a man beater, 2 beats this, 3 beats this. And so if you keep going down the line, theoretically, you'll automatically get to the route that does beat whatever coverage it could be. But that's what they're having to do now, opposed to just pure middle field open or middle field closed reads, right? If middle field's open, the post is there for you. If middle field's closed, you're going to throw outside. That was kind of the basic way of playing quarterback for the longest time. And then next it became to like half field reads where you just are looking at 2 wide receivers. This is like computers, like programming, if this, then that style. If he runs this, therefore this guy should be open. And now that's also been kind of broken because they're able to create these triangles of coverages. So 2 players don't do well anymore because they'll have a safety, a nickel, and a corner able to box them in. And so now we've had to go to these full field progressions, meaning you're going 1 to 2 to 3, and then ideally check down. But that's taking a lot of work while you're having pass rushers come and freak you out. So playing quarterback is just it's not a fun time to play quarterback right now. And I think I was thinking about this last night. I was like, what's the answer to this? And I was like, the answer is there's no more tight ends. They're just more offensive line. So you have 7 offensive linemen and you have 2 wide receivers and a running back. And that's all you do now. And you just run the ball and get them out of these crazy, hard to decipher 2 high safety looks.
Also, just to get back on the soapbox again, the athletic, strong-armed 4 or 5-star quarterback that likes to see it before he throws it is going to have a high bust rate again, and it's going to be the quick-thinking, maybe non-ideal physical specimen quarterback that thrives because Drew Brees, Baker Mayfield. Yeah, this is the diagram of that Pyburn interception.
Yeah, perfect. So they're potentially showing you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that could come in theory. You have to account for them on the lines that much. They're too close. But who they're threatening, they're going to drop out and they're going to send the mic from the other direction. So, and then Pyburn, of course, drops to the middle of the field and gets an interception, which is crazy. So it's really tough for quarterbacks right now. It's tough for offensive coordinators. I really think the answer here is when you got to run more and you got to get heavier. I think that's the next I would call it an evolution, but it's actually not an evolution. It would be to return to basics, essentially.
That's the pansy way, Connor.
You just want to throw through. Are you going with the bombs theory?
Bombs, or do you know what else is fun? Is get into 12 personnel or 21 personnel, but then throw.
Yeah.
Because these kids they're not going to stop doing 7-on-7 in flag football.
Yeah. So
you have these highly skilled big guys. You can still throw it to them.
Wishbone, baby. Time to invert some veers. Get to work. All right, cool. So that's the Florida defense. This is why it's kind of a frustrating defense. Now, of course, their corners are hurt, so that changes a lot of what we're talking about here. But this team with good corners, right? This is confusing for a quarterback, and it's tough to execute. But fortunately for us, unfortunately for them, they're going to have some personnel issues with these injuries. All right, Ian, let's talk CFP. And then you have felt very strongly about these rankings whenever I brought up AP. Some of the statements have been, doesn't matter, who cares, these kind of things. But now you have to care, Ian, because these are you do now, because these are the official rankings. And why I cared about AP is because the CFP rankings are not that creative. They're going to copy the AP. There's only 25 teams. And that's what they've essentially done. I think they flipped Georgia and Ohio State. But as far as the AP, this is the AP poll. We're not dealing with a bunch of huge forward thinkers in these selection committees. When you hear their logic behind things, you're like, well, we're not in a good place. But here, so let's talk to the difference between the rankings and the seedings, right? Because Texas is number 5 in the actual rankings. But that doesn't matter because Ohio State is behind Oregon. Therefore, Ohio State doesn't get the bid for the Big Ten. And so Ohio State ends up getting knocked to 5 in that situation, knocking Texas down to 6.
Yeah.
So, and also it's frustrating for Ohio State, right? Because they're ranked number 2, but it doesn't matter. They end up being a functional number 5.
If I'm Ohio State looking at this, I'm not too frustrated.
Oh, dude, I know, dude.
You're telling me
yeah. You're Ohio State. You're like, oh yeah, no problem, dude. I'll take a G5 and a former G5 independent.
It's 2 G5s. I beat 2 G5s, and then I get my rematch with Oregon, who's had to beat one of Indiana or Tennessee, who are both probably better and more talented than Boise or BYU. Although I haven't watched a ton of BYU this year, so maybe they're a little better. They got one of those older, quick-thinking quarterbacks we've been talking about. Those are always can be problems.
Yeah.
You know who else? That freaking Indiana quarterback is awesome.
I haven't watched Indiana either. Now I don't watch those Cinderella teams until it becomes real, and it seems like it's becoming very real for them. So now I'm actually going to pay attention. But I'm not going to waste 3 hours for them to upset on game 6 or whatever.
I asked a guy who does some scouting where they had Rourke in the NFL deal, and he was like, dude, Rourke, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh my gosh, how do y'all not? Yeah, this is going to be like another Purdy type steal for the NFL. Like, believe me, this guy, they get so fixated, Connor. They're like, well, he's not fast. He can't get out of the pocket. It's like, you're a fast guy that can get out of the pocket can't figure out this crap that teams are throwing at him. The mental eval is so much more important. It drives me nuts.
If you get a truly special mind, that's what you have to take it, even if they're not. But the problem is these scouts and stuff, like you think about how easy it is to get fired. They can easily stand on the table for traits. It's highly visible. And even when those traits do bust, it doesn't matter. They can say, well, I don't care. He was 6'5" and ran 4.3 and he could throw it to the moon. So we've created this incentive structure where you're not rewarded on finding true value. You're just looking at the assets that everyone clearly wants. And then you can justify your job for one more year. It's
let me put it another way, which reinforces what you're saying. All the reasons, like you would think, like something like Tom Brady's never going to happen again, where the greatest quarterback of all time drops way down because of this traits thing. It would 100% happen again. The next Tom Brady would absolutely get overlooked and fall way further than you would think.
Oh yeah, we would miss it every time. It's all about traits. And you'll hear the inverse in college, right? Like we've seen it where like we say it's like a Big 12 quarterback and he has good traits, but we've watched him since a freshman for 4 years and he's an idiot, and like you just know that no matter, I don't care, if he's this big and this good or whatever, he doesn't understand football at a core level. They'll still take him because it's easy to justify and you can point to tangible traits. But shout out to the good scouts, man, that are willing to, actually do their jobs and risk being fired and giving real takes. Because the other ones, man, scouts are not paid for the first round. The first round's I could do first round scouting. It's whenever you're talking about like, is he a 7th rounder or is he undrafted? That's where you're finding value. You're finding value in the 4th round. That's the skill of scouting. Anyone, I can take anyone from this chat right now, and they could pick the first 32 pretty safely.
I'm looking at Texas's draw now, really for the first time, and this sucks.
Yeah, I know it's not ideal, is it?
I've been watching Miami to write about him on the Substack, americaswargame.substack.com, and Miami's offense is basically the Washington Huskies of 2024. They have good receivers, and their quarterback makes quick decisions and throws lasers into tight windows.
And he does stupid stuff sometimes where you're just like, there's no defense for that. Like, and I mean stupid, like he makes plays where you're just like, what the hell? How do you defend that? It's quick.
Rough.
Based on trait logic, Joe Milton would be a superstar. Anthony Richardson, also based on trait logic, would have been a superstar.
Yep.
But I agree with you with Miami. I know everyone's saying they're pretenders, but Cam Ward will make some dumb mistakes. He's thrown some dumb balls, but also he cancels that out by having a little bit of magic to his game too.
They're also I was watching their Duke game, and Miami was playing with a ton of tempo, like a Big 12 team back in the day, because they were like, look, if we increase the number of possessions in this game high enough, our offense is going to score a ton of points, and you're not going to be able to keep up. It's not just that their defense is bad. It's also that their offense, they're winning. They're trying to win games with offense, which Washington did not do that at all. Washington was very careful on offense to protect their defense. I don't think Miami can win too many playoff games with their style, because it just takes one team that can like hold them down for a minute and score. And then Miami will
let them get down on their own and not let them come back, because they also put themselves in sketchy situations.
Yep.
It's not like they're just front running the whole time. That's a different thing. Like they keep getting behind.
But Miami has Conor McGregor knockout power that can fell any team in the playoffs probably. If that left counter hook catches you, you're gonna be unconscious, even if you're Georgia or whoever. So I do not want to have to play Miami in the playoffs. I think Texas could beat them. I think a lot of these teams could beat them. You don't want Texas to have to be the team that has to beat them.
Yeah.
It's just, those are murky waters.
And also Washington also kind of had that weirdness about them last year too. They would get behind in some games like Arizona and stuff like that. They had they won a lot of one possession games. How do you feel about one possession teams? Because it could be they're underperforming, but also I think that also can be a positive trait. Like they know how to win those games. So it's like it can be either side hey man, they shouldn't even have been in one possession game. I agree with you. But also teams with a lot of experience, like when it does get close and they have to prove clutchness and they've proved that they can win it when they have to, that's also kind of a scary thing. But we match up well with Miami. Well, you have Cam Ward and you have the number 1 passing defense in Texas. So, I mean, if you're going to match up, you're going to match up as well as you can statistically.
Good passing offense
beats good passing defense.
Good passing. You just everybody just trust me this year. Texas could beat them. You don't want to have to mess with it. Like,
if you could avoid this problem altogether, you would.
Yeah, none of these other teams can throw the ball around like Miami.
Yeah.
Like you just don't want to be in, and Texas has not been tested by a passing game like Miami's.
I was gonna say Texas has the number one passing offense, but also we have no experience with this level of passing attack.
Yeah, just forget it. You don't want it. Just,
Yeah.
on the one possession game, it's kind of like Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, or like all the analytics, like crying meme with the crying under the mask, and it's like, no, momentum isn't real, and one score games are a 50-50 proposition, and then just Patrick Mahomes, ring making machine go burr, right?
Right.
Like when it's because of a really good quarterback that knows how to manage these games, it is absolutely replicable. Now they can get themselves into trouble. Like Jameis Winston in Florida State was exactly like Miami in 2014, where they won all these one-score games in the ACC. They were undefeated, and everyone was like, this team is not actually that good. But then they kept winning because Winston and the passing game were so impossible to handle. And then they got to the playoffs, and then freshman Dalvin Cook fumbled twice, and Jameis Winston fumbled, and Oregon jumped on him, and then Florida State fell apart, which could happen to Miami.
Yeah.
And also, it probably will happen to them at some level, but they could easily stack up one or two more. How did they do that wins first?
Yeah, I think fans are most questioning their lack of schedule.
Yeah, it's all valid. I'm just,
if you could avoid it, why would you choose Miami if you could play BYU?
I would rather play almost every other team.
Yeah,
I think I would rather play every single team in the top half of the bracket than Miami.
Yeah. The Alabama matchup. What do you think?
No, I don't like that one either that much.
Yeah,
because they have some of that same deal where
Jalen Milroe is just going to take off.
You've got him, and then Milroe makes a play, or he throws to Ryan Williams, and he like clowns somebody.
Yeah.
But Alabama, the one thing about Alabama that keeps biting them, I don't think Alabama's going to make it to the playoffs because their secondary, they still have some games left, I think.
They got to play LSU.
There you go. Their secondary is too young, and I just don't think I don't think like the two ways that you consistently win close games is veterans in the secondary and a veteran at quarterback.
What do you think too?
Like the secondary.
Yeah. What do you think too? Like just how the seeding works. Like Alabama's going to be a favorite versus BYU in the betting markets. You think Alabama would be a favorite versus Penn State in the betting markets?
Yeah.
I just think the seeding's all backwards. Because, like, the whole point is, right, the whole point of you wanting a 5th or 6th seed is for you to be rewarded for your success and to play a team that's not as good. And then in turn, you end up with Alabama, who's better than BYU, likely better than Indiana. I haven't watched Indiana, so I might be saying something dumb there, but likely better, and then likely better than like a Penn State. They're better than Notre Dame probably. So it's like that. My problem is like these seedings are all screwed up, and we're not incentivizing what we're supposed to be incentivizing. What's the point of being the 5th seed if you end up having to face Bama and Miami?
The debate that's going to be all over the internet is not which G5 or ACC Big 12 team should be left in or out, or what chances they have. The big debate is going to be, why are we pretending that the Big 10 and SEC are equals? Because they're gonna need to pretend like the Big 10 and the SEC are equals, and they're like, well, Alabama has 2 losses and Penn State has 1, and Alabama's going to be like, we would whoop Penn State on a neutral field. We would whoop Penn State in Happy Valley. This is a joke.
Yeah. Feed
me, James Franklin. But they're going to pretend like the 2 big conferences are mostly at parity. And that's going to result in things like this.
Yeah, this dumb seeding where it's like, wow, Texas, congratulations for getting the 5th seed in the country. You are rewarded with Alabama. So it's just like, that's where it's dumb. And we need some man, we need to bring back some like real rankings, man. Like how they do in basketball, how they're able to really equalize for conference and schedule, because it's absolutely silly. And the concept too of BYU getting a first round bye as the 9th ranked team in the country. And I knew everyone was going to be like, see, I told you guys were going to turn on these top 4 conference champions, but it's true. The number 9 team getting a week off is silly. It doesn't make sense. So I like the playoffs. I like the structure. I like it better than a 4 team. I think this is look at these teams that are going to play each other, and you get home playoff games. This is a way better model. It's just our seeding is totally jacked up, in my opinion.
They'll go to 14 teams, and then they'll give the Big Ten and SEC champions the only 2 byes, like in the NFL playoffs.
Or just top 4 gets a bye.
No, maybe eventually, but they're going to want to preserve the conference championships.
Yeah,
because of money. So they'll. Plus, I think winning the Big Ten or SEC should have a reward, whether they have a championship game for it or not.
But I also think too, I mean, if you win the Big Ten and the SEC, there's no way you're not going to be top 4. So it's like, I get that it's like technically you're not automatically granted that, but practically you are always going to be top 4 for winning your conference, unless it's some weird thing where you're 9-3 and they're 12-0 and you do some weird upset. But
the problem is not whether the Big Ten the problem is not whether the Big Ten and SEC champion get rewarded. It's that BYU and Miami get rewarded when it's like,
right,
this is a joke.
Yeah, and so that's where it doesn't work. Top 4 get a bye, conference champs get a home game, maybe.
No,
I would have to see how that. I haven't even thought of that propagation, but I do agree with the top 4 get a bye regardless of your affiliation.
I'm just telling you right now, SEC champion gets a bye, Big Ten champion gets a bye, then you have a field of 12, and the bracket works like the NFL, where only the AFC and NFC regular season champions get those byes, and everybody else has to duke it out in the first round. That's what's going to happen.
But how does it work? At that point, has the SEC and the Big Ten absorbed the other conferences? Because the AFC and the NFC are the only conferences. But to just award 2 conferences,
no.
5,
No. They can still have all these conferences. That doesn't matter. But they will expand the playoffs to 14 teams from 12. And then the only teams that get the bye will be the top 2 seeds. And the top 2 seeds will invariably be the Big Ten and SEC champion. It won't even be written into the language that it's the Big Ten and SEC champion, but it'll play out that way.
Right. Yeah.
95.
So practically that's how it'll work. Yeah. I'm down. Remember 2022 K-State would have been in the top 4 winning the Big 12. TCU would have been dropped to at least 5th.
TCU may have been left out. Probably not. Yes, that would have been.
But it is. Yeah. I mean, my issue is the seeding here. And of course, that's because we're probably getting an Alabama-Miami draw in this situation, why Ohio State gets Boise State and BYU.
That's a huge disparity from 5 to 6.
Yeah, that's like insane. Yeah. Like Ohio State's the 5th seed. We're and really Ohio State's the 2nd best team. They're getting rewarded for their drop. Our drop, we're getting the opposite of rewarded. So it's just kind of silly.
Yeah.
Even Georgia has to play Notre Dame or Penn State. Like, ooh.
I believe this is why Ohio State has struggled to be a really tough program under Ryan Day, is that the Big Ten routinely protects them because they're their best shot at the playoff payout.
And they got to play like 1 game a year.
Yeah. And I think that it just totally keeps breeding and reinforcing this like front runner protected mentality, and they just can't handle it when they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be interesting to see Ohio State in the semifinals after this cute little early run. Is that your cat? I thought that was Izzy for a second. I was like, she been grounded this whole time?
No, I think I can hear her too, though, so we should maybe.
Yeah, we're going long anyways. We're at like an hour 15. All right, fans. Thank you guys for hanging out. It was fun to talk some scheme, some ball, and then also the college football playoff, which is going to be fun, but also annoying as we can tell. But Ian, I appreciate you. Fans, thanks for hanging out. Hook 'em, y'all.